Hey, everybody, this is Kevin back with Poolside Perspectives, and I want to say I'm happy to be feeling much, much better. Mike, why don't you give us an overview of what we're going to talk about today?
One of the things we wanted to do is talk about some things that you can do in your design process and or supplement your design after it's been installed to help you deal with the winter. And so we've got a bunch of things to kind of consider and look at and, help through that process.
We have a great show to go on today, so listen carefully.
When you're using your outdoor living space in the wintertime, what are some things that help you do that?
Well, I think that, when we're designing and when you're thinking about having a backyard project, it's really important and critical actually to consider, the times of the year that it doesn't seem like it's a good time to go outside. And I can assure you after the last few weeks, being outside, even in the wintertime, is pretty therapeutic. And I have enjoyed, getting back to some sort of normal and spending some time out. And I will tell you that just being out in the sun, the little bit of sunshine that we got, even though it was kind of cold, was, again, very, very therapeutic. And in fact, I met with a friend of mine, Jamie Pittman, and while I was at his house, and he's the owner of Stellar Cells, he had this giant fire pit in the backyard. I mean, it's huge. It's probably 5 or 6 feet wide,
right? Full
of lava rock,
right?
And there's enough gas going to it that the flames were just amazing. And just sitting there in the sun and enjoying the cool breeze, just was awesome. And I enjoyed the chat with him. It was a great chat. And I think it's just really important to think about that because being cooped up inside all winter long, not really being able to enjoy, especially the beautiful backyard that you may have, and all the accessories that Mike and I have been talking about and all the stuff that we're going to talk about becomes really, really important. And I got firsthand, look at this yet again. And it's just a reminder of how amazing it is to have a backyard that extends from the house and enjoying, being out in the open. It just does. And there's all kinds of things that we can do to make it even better.
So fire pits are one of the things that, basically we came up with the top 15, and fire pits are definitely something that in February you can thoroughly enjoy.
Oh, for sure.
And I don't enjoy them quite as much in July as
right.
I do. I do like, hanging out and, being around people and being social, but it sure is a nice situation when you have a nice fire pit to sit by. And so, you mentioned that he had gas. So there's a couple different things that people do. Some people will use a gas fired unit that they actually build it into place and then they have gas go into that. So that makes it easy to light. And also some people don't burn anything in it other than gas, right?
Well, and oddly enough, most people know that I spent a lot of years at Phoenix building and designing swimming pools. And I did a lot of fire pits for that same reason, because part of what I was trying to, coach people and help people understand was let's look at the broader picture here. This isn't just a project that you're going to enjoy, during the summer when it's nice, but let's figure out a way to make it so that you can enjoy not only your investment, but your backyard being out in the open year round. And it does get cooler there. I mean, you get used to different climates.
Right.
I mean, what's funny about Phoenix is when it gets to be 70 degrees, there'll be people with coats on. But then you get people that are visiting from out of state. For instance, my sisters who visited quite a bit, they would get down there in the middle of summer. We're cold and they're in T-shirts.
Right.
So, different environments, different, you get used to different things. Your blood thins. And so you really have to look at the area that you live in and try to understand it. And that's part of what, we're doing with like master plans and everything else. So yeah, they're pretty good. And I did a lot of them.
Yeah. So there are some people that do like to burn wood, in their fire pits, so that you can put those just about anywhere that you want because they're not considered a permanent fixture type situation. So,
like the portable ones,
right? So,
because, for instance, in Phoenix, because of the air quality, I mean, there's lots of times where you're not allowed to burn wood. They have burn bans, and that can go on for weeks, if not a month or so.
Oh, yeah.
And then so if you have a wood burning one, that's great. But if you have a burn ban going on, you're not going to be using it.
Gotcha.
The indoor fireplaces are the same way because some of them, and probably just like here, they're wood burning and some are gas.
Right.
And, do you guys have, I haven't heard anything about burn bans here. Does that happen?
No. Generally, it doesn't because there's not a whole lot of stuff to burn.
So a different climate, a different perspective.
Yes.
And that's really what we're trying to get across.
Yeah. So, but with your fire pits, I was at a job site the other day and I saw it's a fire pit's called a solo stove. And the solo stove, their whole claim is that they don't have smoke. And so I don't know how it works, but you can burn wood in it and it doesn't throw a lot of smoke off of it.
A solo stove.
Yes.
See, I haven't heard that term before.
Yeah. So Hayden, our electrician,
yes,
has one because in his backyard, the city codes won't allow any fire pit within 10 feet of anything that's burnable. Flammable. So your fence, your house, anything. Well, his whole project's only 15 feet wide.
Wow.
And so he couldn't get anything except a portable unit, which you can place anywhere because there's not a code that restricts that situation. So anyway, it's fire pits are a great way to create a usable space. Now, one of the things that you said I think is really critical is when you sit in the sun, you like to sit there and enjoy it. But the one thing that can really mess it up is wind.
Oh, for sure.
Especially if you're dealing with, February temperatures. So, what are some things, so we have an outdoor structure. Let's go with that as a given. And we have some protection over us. And so we want to try to create some form of wind blocks and type situations. Are there particular things that you found that have worked really well for you?
I think it just depends on the environment and the design of everything, because we can certainly block wind, in different ways, whether or not it's a solid structure or a slatted structure, or, maybe it's landscaping.
Right.
There's ways to do that. And there's probably many ways that I haven't even thought of, because the wind blows a little bit more here than it does yet again in Phoenix.
Right.
And so there's just these different environments where there's lots of great ideas and you're a plethora of information. And, let's discuss some of those.
So the big thing here, and again, I'm sure it's different in different locations, our winds come generally in the winter from the northeast. So, northwest. Got the wrong direction. They generally come out of the northwest. So one of the things that I'm trying to do is make sure that I block that side, maybe the west side and the north side, so I get some protection. And as you said, like a solid wall works really well. But I was going through doing some research because, again, I'm sure in other parts of the country, there's other things that could be done, but to just block the wind. So one of the things that they were talking about was, drop screens that come out of the ceiling that come down, and you can actually get some protection from the wind, which is really helpful. Also blocks the sun in certain times.
I have a question about that because I listened to yours when Trey filled in for me, which he did an amazing job. I was listening to that very intently because I was just really proud of the job that he did. But when you were talking about the drop screens, affecting the wind, what came through my mind is really how much does a screen really block the wind? And clearly it blocks it quite a bit because you guys were talking about air conditioning these units and, some other stuff. So, I mean, it's fascinating to me to learn different perspectives, to understand, different areas of the country and how they do stuff. And so it's been really good.
So the mesh that comes down, there's different grades of that or different size openings.
As I've learned.
And so the tighter ones will actually do a fairly effective job of blocking the wind and also creating a space that you then can heat, which is really helpful. But I had some people that I was just going on different platforms, checking things out. And they said, sometimes it's a temporary thing and we just need something for a few weeks. And we just went in and stapled some clear vinyl plastic up, and on the two sides that the wind was an issue. And, it wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing, but now it made the space a lot more comfortable.
Well, this weekend, when I was out visiting with Jamie, I drove by a restaurant that's in Bartonville, and that's exactly what they did, because I believe that's probably screened much of the time, but on the outside, they did have, some sort of plastic or plexiglass up, against it to kind of contain the heat, create a different environment for people so they could go in there, eat their dinners, enjoy their families and friends, and be comfortable.
Yeah.
It's like ding, 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 ding. Oh, that makes sense.
No. So the other thing that was just suggested was curtains.
Yeah,
If you have some heavy curtains that you put out there, it can be done for privacy to give you in a space, but also can be to just block the wind and be adjusted as you needed seasonally.
And also a great way to maybe add some color.
Oh, most definitely.
And you could change those out based upon the season.
Right. So one of the things that it mentioned in the top 15 here was color in the space. And certain times of the year, you may want to change out things such as simple as like pillows that you're using in a space, or it mentioned also blankets that you may want to use as a throw over the back of a chair, which could bring in some color and some brighter colors, this time of the year, because in February, a lot of times it's kind of dreary and gray.
And those cushions are sitting on furniture. And furniture, this is another great topic. It could be made of steel. It could be made of wood. And, in Phoenix, furniture that's made of steel in the summertime, it's like a hot slide.
Right.
I mean, it's hot. You can hardly put your, arm down on it. And then wood doesn't necessarily always do really good outside in the inclement weather. In Phoenix, it roasts the wood. I mean, everything in Phoenix the sun is just hard on everything.
Right.
And here in this environment, in North Texas, and probably in many other parts of the country, you got to start taking some of that into consideration. How are you going to treat it, or what type of furniture is going to make the most sense? What's going to last? And then the cushions, as you said, you can swap those out based upon the season, add colors to it, and now you get kind of this emotional connection to being outside because you're comfortable as we bring the indoors out and the out in. It's really good stuff.
Right. So with different, like one of the things when I was doing this reading that I didn't really think about that much before is wood, they said, is a lot more comfortable in the wintertime because it's not as cold as some forms of metal would be. But the other thing is, as the materials are exposed, one of the things you may want to look at is if you're going to be using wood outside is to put a protective sealant on that wood to help it hold up better over with the elements, as you would with the metal. It mentioned, using a primer-based, rust-resistant primer to put it on and then put some enamel paint on it. It'd be a good thing to do to help it hold up. Talked about wicker, just using a clean marine-grade varnish on it.
And I like the wicker stuff.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, a lot of cases, you may want to have covers for your furniture so that you can cover it during, the really harsh elements, but then you can pull the cover off and go out and enjoy the space.
Great point.
And put the cover back on after you're done.
There's still a lot to think about.
So one of the things that was crazy as I was doing this research, this was point number 12. I'm kind of jumping around though, but I didn't realize there is heated furniture.
That makes sense. And I have a story about that because up until 2 trucks ago, I'd never had heated seats because, again, I was in Phoenix.
Right.
And it did make a lot of sense to have heated seats.
100%.
But in the wintertime, actually, we did use it. And as we traveled around, especially during COVID in our RV, because that's what we did during COVID, is we traveled. And there wasn't a lot of people on the road. It was just a great time to do it. But the truck that I had at the time had heated seats. And so when I got over here and I changed vehicles because I didn't need that big truck anymore, one of the things that was super important to me was the heated seats. And now you bring up the fact that there's heated furniture. Right. I didn't have any clue there was heated furniture. I mean, it makes sense that there is.
Sure.
But at the same time, you don't know what you don't know.
Right. The people in Chicago are just mocking us right now.
For sure. Or the Northeast.
Yes. They're like, what are these guys that they don't know? Well, we didn't have that perspective.
Yep.
So, but yes, I made fun of my wife for having enjoyed heated seats. And,
do you like having them now?
Yeah. The other day she's like, you want me to turn your heated seat on? And I was like, yes, please. Yeah. So,
and the other thing that the heated seats do for you, I mean, other than the fact that it feels good on you, I've had a bad back for many, many years, and that heat just feels good on, an injury.
Almost definitely. So, we've got a structure. We provide some screening or, enclosure, protection from the wind. What are some things that we could heat the space with?
Well, you could bring in temporary space heaters.
Okay.
You could, that you could use not only in the structure,
Right.
But outside the structure, say you're just sitting outside and you have a little bit of heat. I mean, everybody's been to a restaurant where they've got those portable heaters that they move around.
The freestanding ones. Yeah.
Right. And in this day and age, there's, infrared heaters. There's heaters that are electric. There's heaters that are gas powered. They could be propane or natural gas. Those can be permanently installed in the roofs of structures. We've all seen this in restaurants and other places. And these are things that you can now have at your home. And there's a lot of different options for that. And I used the word plethora a few minutes ago because I was kind of teasing somebody online about that word because it's a hilarious word to me, plethora, which means there's a lot of options. And we could say that there's a plethora of perspectives about things.
Right.
So yeah, it's a funny word to me.
So speaking of funny, I
boy.
I just have to ask about your collar there. Are you going into the ministry?
You mean my noose?
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Well, as some people might know, and those that don't, I had a massive infection that started about a month ago and ended up in the hospital. I blew my face out. I've got this pretty big hole inside of my face, which is finally healing and doing very well. And so I'm trying to protect it a little bit. It's a little awkward, but at the same time, it makes me feel a little comfortable. But getting used to having this around my neck reminds me of a time I was water skiing many years ago. And I was yelling at the boat, whoa, because I had crashed. The rope got wrapped around my neck. They thought I said go.
Yeah.
And so I looked like Clint Eastwood from Hang 'em High for weeks because I had this rope burn all the way around my neck. And, I've gotten used to having something around my neck because of some of the therapy that we're doing for my cancer. But at the same time, it's we're just trying to keep that safe. But yeah, the ministry, that's pretty funny stuff.
Well, we're happy to have you back.
Thank you.
So but those heaters are really nice that you can put up in the ceiling. The one thing that I have a lot of clients that don't understand is the electric draw on those electric units is really high.
Sure.
And so a lot of times it's not feasible to put those in because of the limited electricity. I can't talk now. The electricity that comes up to the house. So the gas ones work really well if you can plan ahead to do something like that.
Well, and that's kind of the point too, the planning ahead. That's why we really like to get in early, and if you're building a new home and, some of the draw from electricity or the gas, requirements, I mean, you kind of need to know that stuff before you start building a house. I've got a huge project going on in Flower Mound. People are amazing. The contractor is amazing. But there were some things that just weren't really, discussed and possibly just didn't know. And so, we're making accommodations now. But if we can get in, if you're planning to build a house, the time to talk to your, outdoor specialist, your pool designer, your backyard designer, whatever you want to call it, is pretty early on.
Yeah. So
master plans work great.
It works a lot easier if we're involved sooner.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing also, which I've done for a long time is we put an outdoor fireplace into that structure.
Oh yeah. And they're beautiful.
They can create some real warmth if you've got a enclosed situation that can be really enjoyed. Also, a lot of people find that it's a great place to put a TV.
It is.
In that space as well.
And be able to incorporate that in like a sunken area with a swim up bar with a fire pit in it. Now you've got the heat. Now you're creating the ambiance. Now it becomes a place everybody wants to go. And, as you come in the front door of a house and you see a pool back there, as designers, we're trying to think about, as we've talked about before, the views, how everything comes together, works together. I mean, that's where you want to go. And again, it's about, spending that time outdoors in the wintertime and in the times where it's kind of inclement. That becomes a really special place.
So everybody enjoys that space, and people are looking more and more for that space outside to enjoy all these things that you're creating. But sometimes you can't build a whole structure. And so one of the things you may want to look at is, can I create something that the house blocks the wind?
Sure.
And I can create a space up close to the house that, is protected for more heavily winter use.
And that's an orientation thing.
Very much so.
So if you, hadn't bought your lot yet and you're in the design process of the house, and I'm sure there's architects that think about this, but there's a time to really look at that. Over the years, Heather and I have become, very good house hunters because we flipped some. We bought quite a few houses over the years. And that's the kind of stuff I think about. There's just other things you think about having outlets in the soffits for Christmas lights. And I could go on and on about it. And unless you've had the experience or you're working with somebody that has the experience, how are you going to get that information? And then you're either halfway through the house build or the house is done. And you're like, oh, why didn't I think of that?
Right. Yeah. So here, the ideal backyard is one that faces east.
Absolutely.
Because the house is now going to block your northwest wind. Also, it's going to block the western sun. And so east is a really nice situation for here in Texas. Now, in other parts of the country, that may not be the case. So
I think it's the same actually in Phoenix with this exception. And I prefer in Phoenix a front yard facing south and a backyard facing north because you get a little bit of shade, you get more shade, and you have a usable patio area instead of a place where you're getting cooked all the time. And yeah, there's things that you can do. You can add to cool your backyard. I've done it many, many times with like misters and fogging systems and stuff like that. And in fact, one of the homes that we owned over there, we could cool the entire backyard off 15 to 20 degrees, make the pool almost disappear with a fogging system. And it was comfortable year round.
Yeah, but you probably don't want to do that in February, huh?
No.
Oh, well.
No, and the issue with that is here you've got to drain all those lines and, because freezing is a problem here. It's not there.
So one thing also, which in certain parts of the country I know is very commonly done or much more commonly done than here, is they'll do thermal heating in the floor of the patio.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, so it generates the heat. It gives you protection from the snow and the elements. From building up in that space. But some parts of the country, you don't have that. So there's a thing that you can do, which is the next best thing, which is called a rug.
Sure.
So,
well, the whole thing about the deck and, the patios is you can actually heat a deck around a swimming pool too.
Oh, certainly.
Does it make sense? It depends on where you live.
Right. So probably more in the cabana would make more sense than around the pool. But, so what we have in our back patio is we just have a rug that sits out on the patio. Now the problem with the rug out on the patio is when we get some heavy rains, sometimes it does get wet, but
right.
It dries out and then it provides a layer of insulation and another pop of color in the space. And those can be switched out too.
Well, and they make rugs that are kind of designed and made of materials that can be outside.
Oh, most definitely. So, so along with you mentioned the fire pit, there's a couple other freestanding elements that I think work real well, to create some heat. One's a chimenea. So chimenea is going to be more like a freestanding fireplace.
Yep.
That did they do a lot of those in Phoenix?
Oh yeah, they have them. They made of clay. A lot of them were made of clay.
Right.
You could get out there and you could, put stuff in it, put firewood or whatever. And that's a source of warmth for sure.
Right. So the other thing that I think Trey mentioned when we were talking about last time is these fire tables that people are doing more and more of that, basically the centerpiece is a fire feature. So you can generate some heat in the space, but, eat around that as well.
And gather. Most of those are propane.
Right.
They got little tanks and we had them in Phoenix as well.
But now that we're warm and we've got some enclosure, so there's one thing also that I think that is something that comes into play psychologically more than anything else. And so I was doing some reading about all these different things in different parts of the country, in the world that, what they do outdoors. And the Danish have this word they called hygge.
And we were talking about that earlier. It's the first time I've heard that term.
So I think this should be the vocabulary word of the week.
The Poolside Perspectives vocabulary word?
Yes. So
you're going to have to talk about that because I don't know diddly about it.
So hygge, the first thing is the pronunciation, I may have wrong, but I think I'm close. But it's spelled Hygee, which I'm like Heige. Oh, but
Which sounds like a Danish word,
right.
I mean, to me.
But anyway, so the philosophy is about creating a comfortable space.
Mm-hmm.
And the number one thing they say that creates a comfortable space is candles.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It creates ambiance, and yeah, you can get candles with different scents.
Yeah. So they talked about an average Danish family burns twice as many pounds of candle wax than any other place in the world.
Interesting.
So, but they also are called the happiest place in the world too.
Heard that.
So they have very, very long winters.
Mm-hmm.
And so to overcome that, this is one of the things, there's many layers to this, but the candle thing was really interesting to me. They said that they have an average of 5 candles burning in a room, was the highest percentage that people, now some people had 4 and some people had 3.
So is this inside the house?
They do it in both spaces.
Inside and outside.
Inside and outside. Yes.
It's interesting with the different perspectives, just around different cultures and around, different countries around the world, how they do things differently, and I think we can all learn from everybody.
Oh, yeah. So that's the idea, right?
Yes, sir.
We don't understand but a fraction of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's learn from other people. But it was interesting, the thought and in the tone of the light that they like. They also use special lights in their homes where they cast pools of light. And so it was really interesting. I got a book on it. Of course, I have to go get a book. So that's me. So
I think we both have big libraries.
Yes. So I will read and have probably more information on this in the future.
It's a good one.
But I thought that was a really interesting thing. So, but what they're bringing into play is light is probably one of the most important things for enjoying an outdoor living space in the wintertime.
So if we had a listener, Mike, that was, that popped their ears up and said, I want to know a little bit more about that, how would you suggest they gain some insight and some information on that? Just getting on the internet and looking up this hikey word? Not hikey. So in Phoenix, our neighbors across the street, they're the wife, her name is Heike. And
okay.
She's from Germany.
Okay.
And love these people. And part of the reason I liked him so much was many, many years ago, I was indirectly involved with the construction of their swimming pool, which had an automatic pool cover on it because they used their pool for exercise pretty much year round. But one of the things that Derek did, he was the man of the house, is they did an indoor plunge spa or a plunge pool. And I found that pretty fascinating as well. So, I mean, you're just constantly learning, new things all the time.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's lots of stuff to find if you turn over a few rocks and look under them and see what's out there for us all to learn. So, and
that brings up just one more thing, and you've mentioned it the last few times, and that is why your questions are super, super important here, because we're trying to get as much information out as possible, and we're learning here too. And so if you have a question or some sort of insight, and, we've got a group of guys that are, helping us, come up with questions as well. We're getting questions asked by our listeners. But please, I mean, if there's anything you have any questions about, we'll do some research. We'll find somebody. We may even bring somebody on the show to talk about it. That is the whole, again, premise of what Mike and I are doing here.
Yeah. So it's on the website. Just please go. And I put in the last episode the wrong website address.
Nicely done.
Thank you. Thank you. So our website is poolsideperspectives.com.
Yes.
There's no podcast on that.
That is correct.
Okay. So I messed that up. So for none of you caught that and sent me a message yet. So, but you'll find out soon enough when you go to the wrong one that we're not there. But there's a spot on the website to ask those questions, and we follow up and check those every week, and we would love to answer more of those.
And we're starting to get more and more of them.
And we're getting more and more. So with the lights, is there any particular light that you enjoy more than others outside?
Really, to be honest, there's not. I have been fascinated with just all the new lighting aspects that are coming out, specifically PAL lighting. And just there's been such, so much revolution and evolution in lighting going back to the days of fiber optic lighting, which I did quite a bit of years ago. Especially I know a lot of people get really excited about those fiber optic stars in the bottom of the pool,
Right.
because it just looked really cool, and even the strip lighting around the pools. But now, I mean, if you get on any of the platforms such as Instagram and Facebook Reels and stuff, you're starting to see how lighting is now changing, literally the entire environment around a house, outdoors. The flashing lights, the Christmas lights that are capable of being programmed, to different sounds, different music. It's creating that ambiance, that place and that space that you want to spend time in. It is amazing what's going on out there in the world.
Yeah. So there's more and more requests for cool lighting.
Like the toned down lighting.
Well, I meant like, that's cool.
Oh, gotcha.
But yes, there is that as well.
Right.
So I got to use the right word here. So I have a limited vocabulary, so I can mean lots of different things.
Well, and I have a lamp in my studio at our office that you can adjust the tone of the lighting, and it does have an effect on you. There's some days that just you want one tone, other days you want another tone, or you need to just be able to experience or feel a little bit differently or see things a little bit differently, and that's just a basic light. And now we're doing that outdoors.
Yeah, the Danes do not like cool lighting.
Oh.
So that they definitely are in the warmer tones.
Is that what they're called, the Danes?
Danish?
Yes, but is that what they go by, is the Danes?
Yeah, I think so.
I didn't know that. I thought the Danes were like Great Danes.
Well, they probably think they are great too.
I'm sure, and they are, and I agree.
Yeah.
Love it.
String lights are probably one of my favorites that are getting used more and more.
So like the Edison lights that people are stretching out over things to kind of light stuff up?
Right, just to create kind of a patio, party type experience. And so that my wife loves that in our backyard.
Happy wife, happy life?
Always. So although she does like, actually she's really into light. So we have some crazy Christmas lights going on right now. But she really likes the torches as well.
Like the tiki torches?
Like tiki torches. But there's some nicer units that are out there that are available now.
Oh, for sure.
Than your standard bamboo tiki torch from Walmart. So
right. No, I'll bet you there's some really good stuff. And I've seen some of it. Even now, I think one of the things that we're seeing more and more of is people are doing some of the gas lamps out back.
Yes.
That's cool, and, one of the things that we haven't really touched on, which we will at some point, is, if you live in an area, where there's lots of bugs, there's different types of lighting and different types of candles and different types of products that can be used to help keep all the bugs away.
Most definitely comes into play, although hopefully in February, I'm not going to have any mosquitoes in my backyard. Hopefully they're all dead at that point in time. But we use the same lights in July very much for the mosquitoes. So different times for different things. One
of the things that we love about Phoenix is we really don't have a bug problem. We don't deal with that. But if you get into a climate where there's a lot of humidity in the air, a lot of water around, you're probably going to be dealing with bugs at some point, especially mosquitoes.
Oh, most definitely. They are the state bird for some climates. I've seen some mosquitoes that are monsters.
That's pretty funny.
So one of the things I'm surprised you haven't brought up yet in this list here, because I think it's one of your favorite things.
Wait a second, that I haven't brought up? My brain is just starting to work normal again.
Well, okay, I've got a little disadvantage here. So the hot tub is on one of the most popular things to have to survive February in the winter.
Completely. I have always had a hot tub of some sort, whether it's in ground in the pool or whether or not it's separate. And, I went through a lot of years of, kind of having this mentality against above ground spas. And, after you have one for a while and you can use it day in and day, every day, every morning, at night before you go to bed, without having to heat up the spa and the pool. I mean, there's times when that makes sense. And, not everybody wants everything exactly the same. So how do we make sure that, we're looking at all this stuff and really comprehending and understanding how it all works.
Right.
And I have loved, we have a hot tub at our home in Phoenix in the foothills, and it's Phoenix. Who uses a spa year round? We did, every morning and every night. And here's the thing about spas too. And people sometimes worry about how many jets are in a spa or a hot tub. And it's the therapeutic action of the warm water, the hot water, that actually is doing all the work. Does it feel good to have a jet on your lower back, on your shoulder? Of course it does. But just being in the warm water,
right,
that's therapeutic. That's wellness.
Right. So that's I've got a real high interest in that because that helps me sleep a lot better.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, having your hot tub by your fire pit, going out there, all you need is some proper food while you're out there as well.
You're creating a destination place.
Right. So, the outdoor grill and kitchen is something that will really help people enjoy the space, when you're trying to entertain outside in the wintertime. So
I have a client right now that we're doing just a massive project on, and I heard from them yesterday, and they've been listening to our podcast. And I have been telling them about a store here. It's called Texas Outfitters.
Yes.
And they have, we'll use the word again, a plethora of products.
Okay.
And they, are finally, and I, almost started from the beginning of we need to kind of explore this outdoor kitchen a little bit more. But they live in a different part of the country, so meeting there hasn't really been very convenient. But I think now they're recognizing that there's other products out there that we might consider. And we could talk a lot about some of those, which isn't the point here. But when you're designing an outdoor kitchen, there's a lot more to consider or think about than just having a grill or just having a refrigerator. And then, the challenges that we have with, putting sinks outdoors, that really needs to be thought through, just like with showers and warm water outside and hot water heaters outside. There's just a lot of detail that needs to be thought through and talked about.
Well, since you brought up the sink and the shower, let's diverse a little into that.
All right, fine.
So, here, everybody's point of reference is the recent event, which was 2 years ago in February, which would be the Great Texas Pool Massacre, which happened on Valentine's Day.
Which affected the entire industry.
Oh, without a doubt. And so the question people go to all the time is it going to be like that again? And what do I do in the design process to help prevent problems? So one of the things people ask me commonly is, do I need to build some type of structure around my pool equipment to insulate it? So do I need to put a roof over it? Do I need to put walls around it? Do I need to do those things because of that one event? So you have any thoughts there?
Well, I mean, typically in colder climates, in the wintertime, part of the process of owning a home and taking care of it is you need to blow your sprinkler lines out so that there's not water in them, which will freeze, because when water freezes and it's in a pipe, it expands.
Right.
And that creates, other problems, not just in piping, but, with concrete and expansive soils and everything else. And so, if you've got any piping outdoors, in the wintertime, certainly here in North Texas and no doubt in the Northeast and other cooler climates, you have to have a way to drain these pipes, get the water out of them, or you're going to have a serious problem. So things are done differently in different parts of the country. That's, I think, one of the reasons why, water levelers are handled a little bit different here. I mean, there's always more to the story than what there seems to be on the surface. And so, it becomes very critical and important as you're taking care of this investment in this outdoor space that you truly understand what needs to happen to winterize an outdoor kitchen. And here's another good example. People typically, if they're living in a cooler climate and they have a boat, what do they do in the wintertime? They winterize the boat.
Right.
So anytime water is, part of the equation, there has to be some thought gone into it, or you're going to have what we had before. Nobody knows when the next freeze is going to happen or when it's going to happen.
So here, the way that freeze is generally done, to protect is with a pool is we're just going to keep the water moving.
Absolutely.
And if we keep the water moving, then it's not going to freeze up to a solid ice cube.
Right.
Okay. So if it doesn't freeze up to a solid ice cube, then my pipes aren't going to expand. My structure's not going to break, all those type of things. So what happened in the Great Texas Pool Massacre 2 years ago is there was rolling blackouts along with cold temperatures. So when the blackout occurred, the water stopped moving.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that is, I was still in Phoenix when that happened. And so I was watching very keenly, about the whole thing. And at that time, I wasn't even considering moving over here. I was just trying to figure it out because we had pools under construction. And guess what wasn't available? Pool equipment.
We bought it all.
Yes, you did. But also what happened is there were, people around the country just trying to take care of their pools in construction that were sending trucks to Texas to get their hands on as much pool equipment as possible. And so the manufacturers, they ramped up manufacturing, but that takes time. And parts come from all over the world. And what did we have? We had a supply issue. Yes. And so it created a massive, massive problem that was like a ripple effect across the industry. And so were lessons learned about that? Sure. But how do you plan for something unknown? Well, what you do is you do the best that you can. And one of the things is keeping the water moving, which I've always been an advocate of that anyway, going back to my days of 2-speed pumps before variable speed pumps were out, because there's a benefit beyond just keeping the water moving as far as circulation is concerned. And so it's, having a heater on a pool. And I think you poked fun at me one day saying, well, you think a heater should be on every pool. Well, to some degree I do, because I want people to be able to enjoy their pool year round. But for here now, it becomes kind of this safety thing. And to your point a minute ago about you lose power, so maybe we need to consider having a generator. That's got to be powered by something. So, there's just a lot of stuff to look at.
So most of your generators are powered by gas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the gas didn't stop. Okay. The electricity did. And so in a normal situation, normal winter, by the water movement here in North Texas with the temperatures that we get, we typically don't have freeze up issues. Okay. But typically, yes, I have to say that typically. However, if you have a period of time where the water, the air temperature does not go above freezing for 5-6 days, you're going to start to freeze up the system. And so one of the things that I ran into that was a solution that I've used for many years is if you just threw a tarp over your pool equipment, there was enough heat generated from the motor that it would keep that all running well.
To insulate it.
To help insulate the space. Talking about blocking the wind for humans, we're blocking the wind for the pool equipment in that situation. And so I've never seen an issue where we've never needed to build roof structures or enclosures to protect pool equipment. But, that did happen once. The last time it happened before that was decades earlier. But, that's here. Okay. You go 100 miles north of DFW, it's a totally different market.
Sure.
Or Chicago's, again, a different market, or the Northeast is a different market. So,
and you meant, and I picked up on that, maybe somebody else will, if the temperature gets below freezing for 5 or 6 days.
Correct.
And so an insulated blanket over your pool equipment makes sense, but you can't put it over the heater.
No.
If you had one.
No, I was just saying a pump running. Yes.
Right. So correct. I think a checklist for everybody, possibly, and we're not going to go into that today because we're going to bring some service guys in here.
Yes.
That are experts in this.
Right.
To, kind of run with us at some point.
Yes.
And that's going to happen pretty soon.
So but one thing also, when you talk about the outdoor kitchen, a lot of times people are like, they want to put a sink in the space. And when you have the counter isolated where there's no heat in that counter at all, that makes it very easily for a sink to freeze up. So you'd want to drain that line for sure.
Absolutely.
Now, one thing that you might also consider is putting the sink on a heated wall.
Sure.
Okay, so that's going to perform a little bit better.
You mean like on the house side?
Yes.
So then your outdoor structure then is now connected to the house?
Correct.
So, and a lot of people don't want it connected to the house. They want it out in the yard a little bit.
Well, then you better drain the sink.
Right?
Yes. So one thing I have to touch on also in this point is the outdoor shower.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a very common request that I have today. The challenge is it's just like a sink.
Mm-hmm.
The chances of it freezing up are extremely high.
And we talked about this on a different episode about, the planning of it and what you have to do, because typically if you have a sink, it's got to go to a drain into your sewer system. That sewer system might be 50 feet away. It might be 200 feet away. And I'm talking about the cleanouts or some space or place that you could tie it in with the house. That's got to be thought through, pretty well. And then we talked about grinding stations. And so it's just a little bit more than just, we'll just tie it in here and everything will be hunky-dory, because sometimes you're going uphill.
Right. So when you're in the outdoor kitchen, though, and you're enjoying your enclosure, if you have some refreshments that you can enjoy in the space, that helps you stay outside a little bit longer. So hot chocolate ranks on the top of my list.
One of the things that I've gotten used to in the last probably couple of months because of what's going on with me is I've never been a coffee drinker.
Yes.
I'm just not. And everybody says, well, you spent 13 years in the military. I mean, you should be, smoking and drinking coffee and doing all this stuff. Well, that's kind of a judgment thing. I never developed a taste for coffee. But one of the things that my amazing wife has started doing is she makes a special mushroom coffee, and then she adds a little bit of creamer to it. And it is delicious, and it's super, super good for you. And so I've developed now a taste for, we'll call it quasi coffee, because if somebody put a cup of black coffee in front of me, I'm not going to drink it.
Right.
But I've gotten used to that, and it's really, really good. And so that warm, drinking a warm drink, you're outside, you got your feet up on your fire pit, roasting your toes. It's pretty awesome.
So I thought you were going to say hot tea.
Well, I'm drinking hot tea now too.
Okay.
And I've never been a tea guy.
Right.
I just haven't been.
So.
And you drink a lot of tea now, don't you?
I drink more than I used to. Yes. So I gave up Coke Zero, and I've survived fine for the last 4 or 5 months.
Why did you give up Coke Zero?
Because it's probably not good for me that I drank a half a case a day.
You think?
No. Well, maybe.
Hey, we're just thinking wellness, people. So if we put in something here and there for that, I mean, highly encourage giving it a shot.
Right. So one thing also, hot cider is a good friend of mine's favorite thing.
I like it.
Yeah. So it's a little bit different. So, but if you have some type of warm beverage when you're out enjoying your space, that makes the space even more enjoyable.
Well, and for those people that, I grew up in Idaho. And so growing up, we did a lot of camping.
Right.
And what do you do when you go camping at night? You have a fire burning. Right. Everybody's drinking something warm, typically.
Right. Sitting
around, just talking and just enjoying being outdoors.
Right.
I mean, this is a beautiful thing with these outdoor, spaces that we're creating.
Oh, the great thing is, I mean, I love going to Colorado and backpacking.
I know you do.
Okay. But, it's a lot easier to walk into my backyard and enjoy the space than drive 12 hours.
And how fun is it for kids, to go camping in the backyard?
Oh,
set up your tent.
Oh,
it's a cool thing for them.
It's an adventure, and that's what you're trying to do, is create some adventures in the wintertime to enjoy your space.
And if you like, stargazing, depending on where you live, because there's parts of the country that, there's so much outdoor lighting that you don't really get a good look at the stars. But if you're in a place that's pretty dark, I mean, there's a whole lot more stars than anybody ever sees.
Oh, telescope
it's insanity.
Be kind of cool to sit outside and enjoy, a telescope and look up at the stars at night.
Yeah, and you're with your kids and introducing them to new things.
Right.
I mean, those are special moments. Those are the moments that I, really cherish with my own children.
So one of the things along those lines is, are there games that you can play in the wintertime when you're all sitting around gathering, visiting and things like that? And so there was a couple of things that I ran across that I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. Have you seen these giant Jenga towers?
I have not. We'd played a lot of cornhole, which is relatively new to me.
Yes.
All the time. My kids love to play cornhole. And it's fun to, get different cornhole contraptions with maybe your favorite college football team on it or your favorite slogans on it. But that's really a fun game. But tell me more about some of the games that people enjoy here. And then if we're talking games, we need to store these somewhere.
Right.
You can't just leave them out in the elements all the time.
Right.
And so storage, as you've talked about before, and I know is important, is, as you're creating these outdoor spaces, where are you going to store certain things? For instance, going back to the wood, if you have wood burning stuff, but I want to hear about your games.
Well, cornhole's one of them. So you already stole that one from me. So, but yes, that is, I'd say, one of the best things. The telescope was another thing that we already mentioned. But the giant Jenga tower, basically it's a bunch of blocks that you stack up,
and you pull pieces out.
Pull pieces out, and see how far you can go. So, I'm a very I eat at Fuzzy's a lot here in DFW, and they have all of them have east-facing patios, and a lot of them have giant Jenga sets out there that you can sit around and play with if you don't want to watch the ball game.
Have you heard of that? I think it's called Pickle and Chicken or Chicken and Pickle. Have you seen that place?
Yes.
So I haven't been there yet.
Me neither.
And I'm certain that there's games there. I'm not sure what, but there were places in Phoenix, really cool places, especially down in Tempe, down by ASU, because, and I only say that because those are the places that our gang, went, our family of friends that we have in Phoenix, and we'd go there and play cornhole, but they had lots of games to play. So you're outdoors, sometimes you're undercover, sometimes you're in a heated space, in a heated area, and literally these places are packed. People just like being there.
Right. Well, it's just a place to gather, place to have friends, fellowship. I mean.
And where would you want your kids to be?
Yeah. Well, and that's always nice if you can create that space outside your back door.
You did that. I did that.
So you mentioned just briefly a minute ago the firewood and a rack that you could put that on. So I've seen some people build really nice built-in units around fireplaces where they could store wood. But also sometimes it's just a rack back behind the fireplace that, you can store stuff off the ground and keep it dry, and, that way it burns much better.
So one thing I want to ask you about is that, in Phoenix we had scorpions.
Yes.
And scorpions like wood.
Yeah.
And so if I'm putting a rack somewhere near my outdoor kitchen or even close to my home, I could pretty much count on the fact that we would have a scorpion issue. And I was surprised that you guys have scorpions here. I would think they would freeze in the wintertime.
They might.
They might. They go dormant and they wake up, and man, they are tough. I have, over the course of the years, there were times when, scorpions would be in the house. And so I'd get a special light to go outside to find them. And, the little mothers would have, 5,000 babies on their backs. And, you get out there and they would just scram. And, that was interesting. And in fact, one of the houses that we bought, the first thing that Heather did was she did what was called scorpion-proof the house. I'm thinking, how do you scorpion-proof a house? Well, they come in and they seal like every single thing in the house. We still got scorpions every once in a while. And of course, if I killed one in the house, do you think I told her? She's terrified of them. It was so there's that process, but you guys have I guess maybe a different type of scorpion. When I was in the Gulf, during the war and also, all the times I was in and out of Saudi Arabia and the Middle East, they have some pretty nasty scorpions over there. People are afraid of them.
Well, I've never found one in my wood pile.
Interesting.
But I won't tell Laura about that at all.
Right.
Although she probably just listened to it on the podcast. So ignore this, Laura. Our rack of firewood is fine.
That's funny.
So the entertainment is something that, we can do inside, but it's a special situation when you can go outside and everybody curls up around a fire and you got a blanket, got some hot chocolate. You can
even a deck of cards,
or you could watch a movie.
Board games.
You could watch the national championship. Sorry, Texas, you lost. So anyway,
I'm from the Northwest, so I'm pretty excited about Washington.
Yeah, when this episode comes out, we'll know the end result. That's for sure.
That is a fact.
So, but they surprised me. That one quarterback, he's got a future. That's for sure.
and you never know which quarterbacks are going to have a future.
Yeah, that's true. When we were doing research, we decided that it'd be interesting to find out some things that have to do with a particular month. And so I was looking at what February had to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought I'd include that in this episode.
Yeah,
So
let's rock and roll.
there was a lot of things that February is known for. It's the Great American Pie Month. So for all you that want some pie, this is the month to get it in. It's Black History, National Black History Month.
Which is a great thing.
Oh, yes. It's American Heart Month, which is another thing that's really important, is healthcare. National Cherry Month.
Really?
Which I wouldn't have picked February to be National Cherry Month.
Well, and every month's probably got a plethora of different things that are represented during that month. And of course, everybody knows about Valentine's Day.
Yes. I'm going to come to that one in a second. But
all right. Sorry. Got ahead of you.
The one that I thought that had to do with outdoor living is it's National Bird Feeding Month.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I thought that was an interesting situation. So this was John Porter in 1994 came up with the National Bird Feeding Month. And he was wanting to, he said, February, it's tough on birds. They've run out of food. Their bodies are depleted. So it really helps if they get some extra food. And if you want to create a space where birds like to hang out, if you feed them in February, that's the best time to feed them.
We have a beautiful Siamese cat. She was white when we got her, and she's now very dark. And she'll get up on the windowsill in my office at the house, and she will, sit there, and all of a sudden she'll start just going berserk. And oftentimes a bird is out there, and there's a red cardinal that shows up every once in a while, and it sits there and almost taunts her. And it's hilarious to watch. But I would imagine, here in North Texas, there's probably a pretty diverse amount of birds here.
Yes, there is. So it's, you have a lot. Some of them migrate in the wintertime, but some of them stay around. So it's something that my grandfather, that was his favorite thing to do. He had a huge window outside of his house and had feeders and would sit there and identify all the different birds that would come through. But it's something that a lot of people can enjoy looking at the outdoor space, but also just helping out our little feathered friends. Although the squirrels a lot of times get the food as well. So,
The one thing I don't like about the birds is they seem to like the mirrors on my truck.
Yes.
And they'll sit on there and do their duty on it, and I'll come out and go, what is it, 500 birds are out here today?
Yeah, well, you've got big mirrors.
That's true.
So National Bird Feeding Month. So feed some birds. They will greatly appreciate you. And you mentioned Valentine's Day. So if you want to really score some points with your significant others, there's some suggestions.
And you should take every opportunity to do so.
Every day. But Valentine's Day, certainly not. So one of the things that we talked about trends last week was swings. So if you got a outdoor swing for Valentine's Day and decorated it with some Valentine pillows sitting outside, and you lit up some candles outside, that sounds like a very good situation.
Maybe some rose petals.
Yeah.
My wife loves roses. I actually like them too. And so at least twice a month, she's getting a big bouquet of fresh roses that we could look at and enjoy together. Because I love flowers too.
Right. Well, there was one, I guess I forgot that. So one of the things you can do outside is to come in and do winter flowers that have color, like pansies and cabbage and kale.
Which kale's really good for you, by the way.
Well, there you go. Added bonus. So they didn't mention roses for the wintertime, although there are some roses, depending on where you live, that bloom almost all year long. So anyway.
Well, worst case scenario, you go to Costco or to the grocery store, and you can get roses of any color anymore.
Oh, there you go.
Anytime.
So, the one I forgot plant is camellias, or they bloom in February typically. We have one outside of our house. They looked really good when we lived in Sacramento. That was like the camellia capital.
Well, and even getting back to the furniture thing, I mean, now there's just so many different types of furniture and different quality of furniture, and there's a massive amount of different type of swings that you can buy. I mean, the round ones that are, made out of wicker, that hang from somewhere. So we got to have a place to hang that if you're going to, put several 100 pounds on it, and think that through. And so, again, getting back to kind of our master plan and the things that you and I go through with homeowners is let's at least think about all this stuff, because maybe you don't want to buy a swing that's going to cost several $100s or several $1,000s and put cushions on it. But if we have a place that we could eventually add it, what a great surprise that might be for somebody.
Oh, yeah. So there you go. There's a hint.
Right. And we're coming up on it.
Yes. So what other things do you think of to enjoy your outdoor space in the end of the winter?
I just, as I said earlier, I love being outside, and the more I can be outside, the better. And that is, the trend, as, we learned during COVID, is people, wanted to recreate these spaces outdoors. And yeah, travel's coming back, people are traveling more, but there's something about going home from work each day or from whatever it is that you're coming home to, and you almost have a vacation destination to enjoy year-round in your backyard.
So one of the things that I've started doing more is just going out and enjoying a few minutes of silence.
And I love silence.
And
silence!
It's just, if I go outside, it's a lot easier to create and enjoy that space. And, seasonally, it's harder to go outside than just stepping out in the spring or the fall, but it's so enjoyable just to have a few minutes of peace and tranquility and soak in what's around you and just be grateful for all the things we've been blessed with.
Oh, for sure. And even just going out, as you said, going out by yourself. I mean, it's one thing to entertain, family and friends or having parties. And I'm going to go off on a little tangent here just real quickly. But how many people now, because they've created these spaces in their backyards, are holding weddings in their backyard? I mean, what a memory. We got married in our parents' backyard, or we got married, in somebody else's backyard because it was so amazing. And I think that that's just another, benefit of thinking through all of this stuff. But it's super important. Love it.
Yeah. So regardless,
a lot to be blessed and feel grateful for sure.
A lot of ways you can use your outdoor space regardless of the season. But February is a tough season, but I think a lot of us will find a lot of enjoyment.
Why do you think that is? Because the Texas winter, for me, at least my experience, because I've only been through one, seems to be that the weather doesn't get really super cold. We don't get really any snow or freezing until February. So that would be, I guess, one of the reasons why February maybe is tough here. In Phoenix, I mean, you're getting excited now about spring. But in February here in North Texas, and no doubt in other parts of the country, it's still a little ways off before you're going to start warming up a little bit.
Yeah. So, but spring is around the corner.
Yes, it is.
So we can enjoy today where we are and look forward to tomorrow.
Absolutely.
So thank everybody for listening to us today.
Yes, thank you.
And we look forward to sharing with you more. And as Kevin mentioned earlier, send those questions in. Also, if you get a chance to review us on Apple Podcasts and give us a write-up or a review, those are helpful for other people finding out about this information that we have to offer. So,
yes, indeed.
Look forward to talking to you again later.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.